The format for this meeting is an interview with an alcoholic, the hot seat. Inside the alcoholic studio, a speaker will be asked a series of questions that range from their personal story, the steps, relationship with God, and carrying the message. There are no right answers, just a fun and interesting way to share the speaker's personal insight. Our speaker for tonight is
Emily.
Timekeeper, please allow 90 seconds per question. The meeting may run slightly longer. Members, please feel free to leave if needed. And please say done when you are finished with your answer, or please say pass on questions you would prefer to skip. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's begin. Please generally describe, in your words, our basic text, the book Alcoholics Anonymous.
So to me, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, like you said, our basic text is a set of instructions written by our founders, and it shows, as we said in one of the opening reasons, precisely the way we have recovered for the first 100 alcoholics. So it's helpful to me in outlining the steps and just a new way of living. Done.
Are you an alcoholic? And if so, what personally makes you an alcoholic?
Yes, I definitely am an alcoholic. There are a lot of things that make me an alcoholic. Some of the things that come to mind is like even things that don't involve alcohol. Like I respond to things alcoholically, or like I'm very like in my own will, or like selfish, or all those kinds of things. But as it relates to the big book, the way that it defines alcoholism is how I know that I'm an alcoholic, is because I have an allergy to alcohol and also a mental obsession. So when I talk about allergy to alcohol, my sponsor told me that the definition is I have a reaction to alcohol that in like amounts does not affect others the same way. So when I drink alcohol, I can't stop and I need to drink more, and I don't know when it's going to end or what's going to happen. And that doesn't happen in other people or normal people or whatever you want to call it. And then I also have this mental obsession that even when I am not drinking, so when I'm stone cold sober, I think about drinking and I can't remember or just remember all of the terrible things that I've done or like alcohol does to me. So those two in combination, I know that I'm an alcoholic. Done. Sorry.
What does the concept of anonymity mean to you?
The concept of anonymity means everything to me. So other than the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, we have 12 traditions, and several of them talk about anonymity. Personal anonymity is something that I think is very important, and what it means to me is I'm not going to introduce myself on this recording, by my first and last name, and so that I'm better able to carry the message, because if you know that I'm Emily so-and-so and like know what I do and like everybody knows me, and then let's say I'm drink, you may think that Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't work. So personal anonymity is a better way for me to be able to, or any of us to be able to carry the message. It also calls into mind for me humility. Our 12th tradition is anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And that's something that I can have a very hard time with, placing principles before personalities and just not wanting to call anonymity into my life, because I just want to be like better than or like placed a part of, but it's like I'm just one member, just one person, and just like a member of the group. Done.
Please give us a brief sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit.
That's a lot for 90 seconds. So a brief sketch would be I didn't necessarily start drinking alcoholically, but I very quickly related to having an allergy, almost literally. For me, some of the first times, or almost every time that I drank, but definitely the first time, I got very sick and I threw up, and my friends would joke that I was allergic to alcohol. And that's the story of every time that I continued to drink, but I kept doing it. And so again, when I talk about that mental obsession, that's what it was for me. And And even at first, there wasn't any kind of regularity. Like maybe I didn't drink again for a year, or like the amounts I drank, but it didn't matter for me. Like I always had the same kind of consequences and the same kind of, like, again, physical reaction and all the things. After a certain point, though, like losing the power and becoming powerless over alcohol, and I drank even when I didn't want to, and had all sorts of consequences, would be a good description of my alcoholism. Like not just the physical stuff and not just, ending up in hospitals and crashing my car and all the things that I did, but also emotionally. Like our book on page 52 talks about these bedevilments, so like things that trouble us, like we couldn't make relationships with people, or we couldn't be of usefulness to anybody, or we couldn't make a living. Like I wasn't able to do any of those things, and all of those emotional consequences that I have and I had. Up until the point I stopped, it was like that. And then when I think about when I was able to stop, it was just, I'm sure there'll be more questions about a higher power, but nothing was different and everything was different. And then I somehow came to AA. Done.
Alcoholism is described in the book as a fatal illness. What does that mean to you?
Fatal illness to me means deadly. So this is a disease that will kill me. Done.
What are the conditions of your mind and body that accompany your alcoholism?
So I think I talked about that a little. Of my mind, I have this mental obsession, and of my body, I have a physical allergy. So alcohol, when I drink alcohol or put alcohol in me, everything is different, and it affects me different than it might affect somebody who's not an alcoholic, I believe. Done.
In your understanding, what is the role of a sponsor?
Such a good question. So the role of a sponsor, in my understanding, is to take me through the 12 steps. So my sponsor is somebody, I've had the same sponsor for the time that I've been sober, and she had worked more steps than I had. She finished her steps, so she had some experience to be able to share with me. So her role was to read the book with me and take me through the 12 steps so that I am able to have my own spiritual experience like she had hers. Done.
How often are you in contact with your sponsor?
I talk to my sponsor in contact, so almost every day. There's some days that I don't. Probably on the days that I don't, like maybe I should, because I'm probably avoiding something or something like that. But we meet for a very long time. Like we met every week, just with both of our schedules right now. Like we're meeting every other week. We're part of the same home group. So home group is a meeting that I go to regularly and have a service position at. So I see her at least once a week there too. But yeah, we talk at least, text her or something like that, at least every day to check in and tell her when I'm crazy and ask her how she's doing too. So yeah, done.
How have your sponsorship needs changed from early sobriety until now?
That's a really good question. How have my sponsorship needs changed? I don't know. I feel like I actually have needs now, like more specific needs, whereas at first I didn't have any kind of concept of what I needed at all. Like I didn't even really want, that's a lie. I knew that I did not want any part of AA, like when I first got here, and people talk a lot about a gift of desperation. And I didn't have that at first. Like that for me only came as a result of like taking suggestions and doing what my sponsor said and like working steps. So I was just like going to do everything. Like I didn't know what my needs are. Like my needs were what you told me. Like, I don't know. But like having had a spiritual experience now and like continuing to work with others, I don't even know how to explain specifically like what they are, but I know that like I have them now. I know one. Like I definitely had a need before for like approval, right? So like I'll do all the things that she tells me to do like because I need approval, whereas like I like know who I am now and I don't have that need in my sponsorship relationship now, and it's more of like needing her experience, which is what I said what sponsorship in my opinion like should be. It's like she's just sharing her experience, and like those are the needs I have now, for her to share experience on whatever situation she's been through that might relate to mine, or if she can't, she can point me in the direction or place my hand in the hands of somebody who has. So done.
Have you completed the 12 steps? And if so, what is your suggested time frame for completing the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous?
So I have taken the 12 steps. I'm trying to think. So I'm going through them the second time now. I don't really have a suggested time frame, so I can share my experience as best as I recall. So the first time, I think it took me about, I would say like 9 months or something like that, to go through the steps. So I don't really have a suggested time frame. So, done.
In your own words, please describe steps 1, 2, and 3.
So I'm going to read them each and then describe them. So step 1 is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So that, for me, that means admitting that we were alcoholic. And again, for me, that means as it's defined in the book. So the physical allergy and, the mental obsession as well. The second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So once we have a grasp on the first step, that we're powerless over alcohol, do we believe that something can restore us to sanity from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that we have? And then the third step, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So you've admitted that some kind of higher power, the group, some kind of something, can restore you to that sanity. And I think it's important personally, that belief for me really just came from seeing it in others. I saw that it worked for others, so that's where that belief came from. And so making a decision, so I'm going to take action to do something about that. So one of my favorite ways to describe step 3 is it's a decision or a commitment to work the rest of the steps. Because again, I didn't know a lot. Well, I still don't know a lot, but I didn't know anything about how to get or stay sober when I got here. So breaking it down very simply like that helped me. It's not some, oh my God, big, the clouds are going to burst open decision. It's just I'm going to work the rest of the steps to have a spiritual experience. Done.
What does your unmanageability and self-will look like?
It doesn't look very pretty. My unmanageability. So I talked about those bedevilments before. Those things aren't gone, because I'm not drinking right now. And I think that's a lot of what my unmanageability looks like today. I can't control things, and I want to, just like I wanted to control and enjoy my drinking, I want to control and enjoy everything, especially your opinion of me is a really big one, or my plans, or any given thing, and I know that I can't do that. So I am unmanageable, and my thoughts and my reactions to things, in every single way. What was the second part? Unmanageability and
self-will.
Self-will also doesn't look very pretty. That was a topic at a meeting that I recently went to. The way that I see God's will versus self-will, a higher power's will is just whatever is happening. And then self-will is everything that I do that gets in the way of that. And the book tells me that I'm always in collision with something or someone, and I know this to be true, even if they're not doing anything, right? Situations that I make up in my head, or thinking about how you're going to react, or what you're going to say and how I feel about that, or some crazy assumption. So I just have that all the time going on in my head. So yeah, done.
What is your concept of power greater than yourself, and how are you turning your will and your life over to it?
Mm-hmm. So for me personally, power greater than myself, I have some kind of conception of a higher power. I just call my higher power God. I don't really know specifically what that looks like, and for me that's been okay. I don't have to know very specifically what that looks like, or a name, or anything like that. And how do I turn my will and my life over to the care of that higher power? Lots of ways. In doing the third step with my sponsor, our book has a third step prayer. It was suggested that I write my own version of that prayer, and so I have that, and I say that prayer every morning with some exceptions. And I can tell you that when those exceptions come up and I don't, I'm really crazy throughout the day, and things don't go as smoothly as I think they should. So that's one way. And I really just try to I don't know, do the next indicated action, or sometimes you'll hear people say the next right thing. So not doing what I want, I guess, and doing like, I'm just going to go through my day and, oh, a friend called. Now I'm going to answer the phone. Like, that's turning my will and life over and just like doing the next thing. Or someone invited me to a meeting. Like, I'll go to the meeting, and then I get to that meeting and does anyone need a sponsor? And I've raised my hand, and now somebody like needs a sponsor, and now I'm like going to go meet them. And like, now we're going to go out to, like, you know, all those things that just happen when I don't get in my own way. Done.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 4 and 5.
I very recently did a 4th and 5th step. My experience is with that. So it wasn't the first time that I did a 4th and 5th, or even the second time, but my most recent experience with the 4th and 5th step was, I keep using the word crazy, but I was uncomfortable and in a lot of fear before doing the 4th. My experience also was that it wasn't my idea that I needed to do this 4th and 5th step. And that was kind of like the second time too, it was like, okay, there's all this stuff building up and, you know, I need to now do this. It didn't take me a very long time to do at all. You know, I know how to do it. I've written enough inventories. Our big book has, you know, a very specific way of doing it. And that's the way that my sponsor taught me as well. So I was just able to write it all out, my resentments, my fears, sex inventory as well. So I was able to do all that. And then my experience with the 5th step, sharing it with another person, was that it was very helpful to me. And coming out of that, it was an afternoon or an evening that we did it, was that I was able to feel a lot of freedom from doing that and look at myself in a different way and really have a spiritual experience or a psychic change, and just looking at all these like people I hated or like fears that I had in a completely different way, and be able to see what my part or my mistakes were in anything that I had done.
What does the exact nature of our wrongs mean to you?
So the exact nature of our wrongs, I guess, from the 5th step. So the 5th step is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. So to me, like, that part of the 5th step is I'm literally reading my sponsor, whoever I'm doing it with, like my 5th step. I'm admitting it to God and to myself, like when I'm writing it, and then to another human being. So particularly the 4th column. So in the 1st column, I'm writing about like who it was, and the 2nd column, like what they did, and the 3rd column, what does it affect, and then the 4th column is like my mistakes or my part in whatever the resentment or the fear is. So like that's the exact nature of my wrongs, is like, what did I do, and like what does that boil down to? Is it fear? Is it selfishness? Am I being inconsiderate? Am I making assumptions? Am I taking something personally? Like the answer is yes, like spoiler alert to all of those things, but really looking at that exact nature. Done.
Please briefly describe, in your own words, step 6 and 7.
I was just talking about wanting to more thoroughly go through the 6th and 7th steps. So for anybody that has or hasn't even read the book, like it's very short in the big book. It's just like a paragraph for each one. So the 6th step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So we just went through the 4th step and we've written all this stuff. And the 5th step, I've admitted to myself, to God, to another human being, the exact nature. So like, why am I the way that I am? And so again, that 4th column has all of these defects of character, and I'm selfish and I'm inconsiderate and I'm dishonest and I'm all these things and these different instances. And so I'm ready to have these removed, whichever ones my higher power thinks don't serve me. Which is always a fun distinction for me, because I'm like, please remove this specifically. And it's like, no, that's not how it works for me. And then the 7th step, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So that's another time that the book has a 7th step prayer, and my sponsor had me do the same. So write my own version of that. So that's something else that I say every day. So it's just asking a higher power to remove any of these specific or general like defects of character that for me, that they stand in the way of my usefulness to other people. Done.
What are some of your character defects, and are they being removed?
I have a lot. Let's see, like I was trying to think to my most recent inventory. which wasn't last night. Or maybe it was. Yeah, it was. So selfishness always comes up. Right now, for me, I'm doing a lot of assuming. I'm in a lot of fear about a lot of things. I'm taking things personally, and I'm very controlling. I think that's a big one. Like, I'm just wanting to control everything and control and enjoy, like, your opinion of me, and control and enjoy, like, all this information and all these things. So those are some of them. Are they being removed? I don't know. I could be worse. If I'm being very, very honest, I don't think, like, while I do a 3rd-step prayer and a 7th-step prayer every single day, sometimes I cut my 7th-step prayer a little short, so maybe I could be better about that. And then the other thing I know about having them removed is it's not just like, okay, God, like, take my selfishness away, bye, and then, like, that's it. You know, I have to take action as well. So, like, if I'm selfish, like, what is the action that I can take, like, the thing that I can do to, like, counteract that? I could do something, like, not selfish, like, pick up a newcomer, ride to a meeting, or, you know, whatever it is. So taking that action. So I should probably be doing more of that, and then they would maybe be removed. Or maybe I'm just supposed to have them right now for whatever reason. So that could be it too. Done.
Please briefly describe steps 8 and 9.
Steps 8 and 9. So 8 is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. I don't really know how else to describe that. It's pretty simple. So I get to look at my 4-step and all these people I resent or fear or whatever it is. And then it's not always necessarily those people, but looking at those people and others and, like, who have I harmed in my actions, and not just like very specifically, like, what have I done? And I know that for me, I need to look at that with somebody else because I can justify my way in and out of anything, and think that, like, no, I don't owe amends to them because they didn't know about that, or, like, they did this to me, or, like, I don't even really remember it, you know, because I was so messed up, or all these things. So I get to look at that with another person. And then the second part of that, again, became willing to make amends to them all. Like, that involves prayer for me. Like, I am not willing. I still have amends that I haven't made. I think that I don't know, it's funny because I think that I'm willing to make amends to them, but it's like, but I haven't. So maybe I'm not, maybe I am, but anyway, so prayer helps me there. And then the 9th step is just doing it. So made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So looking closely with my sponsor again, are there any people on this list that making amends would injure them or others? Where is possible? So I'm not, like, beating down somebody's door being like, let me make amends to you. You know, I get to look at that stuff. Yeah, done.
Why is it important for you to straighten out your past?
I really, truly believe that if I don't, like, it's a fatal illness. Like, I believe that, like, I will die. I will drink again and then I will die. If I don't thoroughly take all of these steps, but specifically 8 and 9, you know, those were the ones that when I came in here, I was like, oh my God, like, I cannot do that. Like, that's what I looked at first on the wall and was like, I can't do that. You know, there were some things, like, when it got to a certain point in my drinking, that there were certain things that I was sure I would never tell not a living person that I had ever done. And that once I had done those things, like, I drank specifically to forget them. And it made for a very interesting 8th step because it really was, like, looking with my sponsor, like, I don't even remember what's real, what's not, like, what's, like, this or that, like, because I tried to get so messed up to forget. Now I'm blanking on what the question was. Getting caught up in that. What was the question again?
Straighten out your past.
Oh, yes. I have to do that so that I don't drink. Like, I really feel that, like, if I don't do that, that I will drink again, and I know that I won't live. Done.
When you were actively drinking, did you drink whiskey in your milk?
I never drank whiskey in my milk. Done.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 10 and 11.
I keep wanting to say that every step is my favorite step, but step 10, like, for anybody who knows me, is definitely my favorite step. And 11 is pretty cool too. So my experience with step 10 and 11. So step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. I really liked the way that someone that I know put it recently. Like step 10 says, continue to take personal inventory. And we know that we did a searching and fearless moral inventory in step 4 and we wrote it. So continue to do that for me means writing. So I continue to take personal inventory. So I write inventories often. For me, my experience is I was shown, and I do with some exceptions. I don't do it perfectly, but I write in an inventory every single night. So again, it's like clearing out the crazy that I have and like actually being able to look at myself. And then I always forget that there's a second part. When we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So my experience with that is if I'm continuing personal inventory regularly, I get to very quickly see where I was wrong, what my mistakes were, and then own up to that and make an amends or whatever it is that I need to do. Again, I don't do it perfectly, but I'm pretty... lucky is probably not the right word, but because I do it frequently, like it's in the forefront of my mind, that I actually get a little bit, and my favorite spiritual tool right now is being able to pause. So to think like, oh, do I want to write that later? And like, do I want to make an amends for that later? Like maybe I should pause. So that's my experience with 10. And then 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So prayer and meditation. Again, prayer is just I am talking and meditation is listening. I do like guided meditations for you. It can be like whatever you want. That's my experience with step 11. Done.
What does meditation mean to you, and how do you practice it?
Oh, good. I think I ran out of time on the last one, so this is perfect. Meditation to me means listening sometimes, so like for some kind of answer. Again, not like a phone call from God kind of answer, but staying quiet enough to be able to not let my brain get in the way, if that makes any sense, because my brain is where my disease is. And how do I practice it? Several different ways. Breathing is a really big one when I just can't think about... like I'm too wound up to do anything else, just focusing on breathing in and out. Like that's meditation for me. Like I mentioned, doing guided meditation sometimes. And then when the book talks about step 11, it has a very specific, like upon awakening, we do this. And when we go to bed, like we do this. And so just like reading that, considering and contemplating what the book says, or even any kind of daily readers or anything like that. So different things. Done.
Please briefly describe step 12.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So there's some very specific, like these, this, and these. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, so that means for me, I did the steps and now I have spiritual awakening or a psychic change, but perception shift, so I see things differently. I am different. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics. So I know that it used to say we tried to carry this message to others, including alcoholics. I really like that. So this message, like that of recovery, of course, to alcoholics and to be of service and try to carry that message, but also just the principles behind the steps and, you know, like honesty and like brotherly love and perseverance, those kinds of things to anybody, and to practice these principles again in all of our affairs. So that means to me that I don't get to be a jerk in the outside world and like come into meetings and like talk a good talk and whatever. Like it extends to I take these steps and am this way inside the rooms, outside of the rooms, with my family, with my coworkers, and try to practice that anywhere I go. Done.
Can you share with us a spiritual experience you have had as a result of these steps?
I can. Again, the book defines, it says like spiritual awakening, spiritual experience. Psychic change is my favorite term that the book uses because I really think of it like my mind shifts. So one of my defects of character, as I mentioned, is being controlling. And so one of my most recent ones, there was a time where I was just like, from even before I went to bed all into like the next day, like very much like, here are my plans, here's the things I committed to, but here are the things like I want to do, and like how do I get out of the plans that I actually want, like I'm supposed to do the things that I want to do. And through a series of like, there was like a car broke down and like all these like weird things and things got canceled, and just like as I'm like freaking out in my mind, like things just happen the way that they were supposed to happen. I don't really know how to explain that. And so it ended up like one of the things that I wanted to do, I didn't get to do, but I wound up in a place that I know that I was supposed to be at. Like to share, I guess, a little bit more specifically in the last couple seconds that I have, I was with my brother who I never spend time with. Our mom had passed away recently. She passed in the last year. And like, I ended up in the situation, like sitting with friends and my brother, like in the middle of the night, like talking about like his like grief and like how he was doing. And like, that was crazy. Like, and I got to like look back at my day and like all of the time that I had spent like worrying and like mental anguish about like, how can I control my day and what do I want to do and like whatever, to just like see like this is where I was supposed to be. And like, I didn't have to spend all that time, being selfish and wanting to do what I wanted to do. Like everything's going to happen the way that it's supposed to happen. And I'm going to be right where I'm supposed to be. And I have everything that I need. And like, I just need to be where my feet are. So, done.
What is the message of AA, and why is it important to carry this message?
That's a good question. I feel like I don't know the answer to that. So to me, like, I think there are a lot of messages. I mean, I guess I think of like carrying this message to alcoholics, like that AA works and like it works for me. Maybe it can work for you. Like I'm somebody that other methods, and our book talks about all the other things we've tried, and I know it's true for me, like don't work. And this is something that worked for me. So like the message is like anytime we share at a meeting, it's what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now, like through Alcoholics Anonymous, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, because of the steps that like, if you want, like nobody's shoving anything in your face, but like if you want, like if you do these things too, like this might work for you. Done.
What are some of the principles you are practicing in your affairs today?
That's a good question. I am practicing honesty a lot, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm in some interesting friend dynamic things where I've gotten the opportunity to make some choices. And so just staying really honest with the people around me, like my sponsor, like my grand sponsor, great grand, like all of these people, and like my support group of people, even when it doesn't look pretty. So coming to a meeting even when I don't want to. So I guess that's like perseverance, right? Willingness is a really big one. So willingness for me is like doing the thing even when you don't want to. That's been a really big one. So honesty, perseverance, willingness, I don't know, probably more, but those are the really big ones right now. Done.
Why is it important to put the welfare of others ahead of your own?
So I don't die, probably. So like we have steps, we also have traditions, very, very important to me. So our first one just says our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Like that's what I think of. Like I need to put like the welfare and the interest of others in the groups, like in the group before myself. Like I know where selfishness and self-seeking gets me, and it's not pretty for me and it's not pretty for you. Done.
How do you determine or gauge the quality of your sobriety in AA?
Ooh, so I don't know if this is, I mean, there's no right answers, but I have AA measuring sticks. My friends and sponsor and people that I look up to and people that I want what they have. So I don't know, like I'm not, like one of my character defects, of course, is comparing myself to others. I do that like to a detriment, but that's how I measure and see where I at, I think, with the quality of my sobriety or quality of my recovery or my program, is comparing myself to others that they have what I want, or like they have this kind of serenity, or they have peace, or they have sponsees, or they have happiness in their jobs or home, or like whatever it is. So if I don't have that, I know that my quality, because it all goes back to me from my recovery, like if I don't have those things, like I'm probably lacking somewhere. And then I look to my measuring sticks, right, to see like what they're doing that I'm not doing and try to do those things. Done.
Why do you think alcoholics relapse?
So I have not relapsed, so I don't have any experience with that, so I'm going to pass on that question. Done.
Are you willing and able to sponsor other members currently?
I am currently willing to sponsor other members, and I am currently able to sponsor other members. Done.
Presently, what is the most important activity in your recovery program?
My 10th step. So that's good that I picked that as my favorite. So I don't know, they're all important. Maybe like staying sober is the most important, but like I don't know. When it comes to I don't know, like what I do, spiritual activity, something that I do regularly, it's definitely my 10th step. So writing regularly, taking inventory constantly. Done.
Would you please generally describe the purpose of the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous?
So, generally speaking, the purpose of the 12 traditions is for group unity and like recovery, and so that a group can be sustained. So the 12 steps are for me or for the individual, and the 12 traditions are for the group. So I love that like the principles behind them are, they can be, I can think about them in terms of like a relationship or like me or like how I interact, but really generally the purpose is for the group. Done.
Can you give us some examples of meeting etiquette?
Can I pass? Okay, I'm gonna pass.
What role models do you have in sobriety?
Probably all the same people that are my spiritual measuring sticks that I get to compare myself against. So that's a funny topic right now too. I definitely have people in recovery, that are role models for me. Maybe not in all arenas. Like there's like, I don't want to put somebody that high up on a pedestal. Like that's very dangerous for me. And I know that, and I've learned that. But definitely in some areas, like I really want what they have in terms of sponsorship, or I really want what they have in terms of like, they know the book, or like they're really a role model in terms of like XYZ. And so, like I said, definitely my sponsor, definitely my close friends. Like I have a very close support group of men and women who like would not be that way if I didn't want what they had, like as it relates to their recovery. Like they're strong people, they're honest people, they're vulnerable people, and all the things that I want to be, and that's why they're role models. But I have to be careful too not to, again, put anybody up on that pedestal, because we're all alcoholics, and I learn time and time again that we fall short of what I expect people to be. But it shocks me every time because I feel like we should be perfect, but we're not. So that's a fun one. Done.
What advice do you have for newcomers in AA?
Keep coming back is an obvious one, Like, even if you don't have that gift of desperation, or like, even if you don't think you want this or need this, try it anyway. That was a really hard thing for me at first when I was new. Like, I was like, well, there's people who need it more than me, or there's people for sure that want it more than me. Like, I don't really want this. But my experience has just been like, if I do the work, I get to stay. It doesn't matter if I want it. It doesn't matter like how much I need it. Just like do the work. And then also like, just do the work because why not? In the sense of like, I didn't want what I had. I didn't know what all I could get and like what I've been able to get as a result, or feel or become as a result of this program, but I couldn't really see things much worse than they were. So like a why not kind of thing, I guess, would be my advice. And go to lots of meetings. Done.
What advice do you have for old timers in AA?
Continue to stay, please. For people like me, I remember when I was first starting out, I had some friends who weren't alcoholic who, and I know my sister too is in recovery, and she had like several years, and my friend who and now has like a decade or so, but my friends who weren't in recovery like would be like how weird, like they'd come to an open meeting or something with me and be like, oh my God, that person has 5 years, 10 years, like whatever, like what are they still doing here, you know, or 20 years, like what are they doing here, like aren't they cured, like aren't they fixed, aren't they whatever. And I didn't know, like I was like, oh yeah, like maybe you're right, like I don't really know. And I haven't been here very long, but I've learned that to keep it, like our recovery, we have to give it away and like be of service to others. So my advice would be like, please stay. And like, please don't be afraid to be honest and vulnerable too. You know, we see a lot of people with old timers or people with time that, and I can only imagine like you feel like, again, that pedestal thing, like you should have it all together. But I know I get a lot, like we all get a lot out of like somebody with a lot of time, just like being raw or like real, or like if you're going through something, like please share so that we know that then like we can come to you, like how to get through something like that too. Done.
Can you please describe what this experience was like?
This experience was really interesting. I tried to be very careful and hope it came off to only share things like from my experience. I know we said it in the introduction too, but like I'm not anybody like special, like I'm not anything besides an alcoholic, so this is just like my experience with a step. I would encourage anybody, if they want to, like have their own experience with the steps and listen to more podcasts like this, or you know, talk to more people, or have your own experience. Done.
From the old preamble, I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, scatter it, and then learn from it what it means to be an AA. Let's conclude by holding hands in a circle and saying the Serenity Prayer.